Hey everyone, I'm your host, Dee Tagan, and this is Founders Get Funds. On this show, you will hear funding strategies from founders for founders. I will interview people from different backgrounds and industries who have worked to fund businesses. These are real people with real stories, and I'm not afraid to ask the hard questions because I want you to have access to all the resources you need to fund your business. Now, before the break, we were talking about you getting your feet wet with entrepreneurship. You mentioned a lot of things, like the Touch, your TV series, your TV station. How did you fund all the equipment that you needed to get those things started?
Now, the money, when it came to, one thing I was pretty good at is using resources. So I really never had to use any money. I had friends with cameras. I had people who just wanted to do some new things and see if we can make put a dent in the entertainment scene here in Cleveland. So people were just on board pretty much. So we were trying to get to a point where we could sell it. Mm-hmm. So that was our thing. So after doing the TV stuff, we were doing the sports show for the city of Cleveland, and they didn't allow us to do any national sports. So we wanted to do more national sports. So we decided to start a radio show, and the radio show was called Unsportsmanlike Conduct, which we still air today here at this station on Fridays from 3 to 5. So started a show called Unsportsmanlike Conduct, me and Kenyon and another guy, actually Kenya Brown, who was on earlier, and now she works with WZAK. Now myself, Kenya, and Kenyon did Unsportsmanlike Conduct for about 3 years, and we were on Radio 1 on WERE for about a year. And our contract ended, and they didn't see any reason to have sports at the station pretty much anymore. And LeBron was leaving town and everything anyway. So we decided to shop it around. We ended up at an internet radio station called Sports Talk Cleveland. And we were there for about 7 months, doing really good there. And then one day we came to work and the doors were locked. The guy went out of business. So, man, we were stuck again with nowhere to go. And so I just said, you know what, we learned everything about internet radio. And that was different. This was the first time I had seen an internet radio station. I didn't understand it. What do you mean you're on the internet? Really? So we did a show on the internet, Sports Talk Cleveland, and it was an internet station. And it was pretty cool. So that's where I kind of got my own tutelage, man. Learned everything about internet radio and how it worked and how it functioned. And I kind of knew, doing research, how the trend was going to go, later on, and what broadcasting was evolving to. And people were going to stop listening to radio on their cars and start listening on phones and devices and everything like that. So we decided to start our own station. We started a sports station called Cleveland Talk Sports. And we did that for a whole year. And how I started that station, I got into a car accident. And got to a car accident, won a lump sum of money. This is where my funding came in. So I got a lump sum of money, and I invested $15,000 into the radio equipment. And that's how So that's how Cleveland Talk Sports got started. And then after that was done with, evolved into Voice It Radio, because we couldn't really compete with the sports stations here in Cleveland. They had the lock on all of the dollars for the advertising dollars and everything when it came to sports radio. So I decided, after Cleveland Talk Sports ended, after a year, I relaunched Voice It Radio. And that opened it up to a whole lot of different genres, a whole lot of different people around the city doing a whole lot of different things, but all under one roof. And that formula worked. So it's been Voice It Radio since then. And that was December 1st, 2012, up until now, from, like I said, 4 or 5 shows back then, now to over 25 shows, and some of the most recognized personalities in the business, here at Voice of Radio.
So when you invest that much money in a business, I imagine one of the first questions is, how am I going to start making that back?
Right.
So did you always know how Voice of Radio was going to make money?
Yeah, eventually we had to put out the thing that was difficult was the numbers, and media and radio and television is about the numbers game. The more people you're reaching, the more people want to spend money with you because they just want to be seen. They want their products and their services to be seen and heard, and that's what we had to do. It took about maybe 4 or 5 years before I really got my first yes.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody actually wrote a check and spent some money with it. So that first 3 or 4 years was tough.
Yeah.
And that was about stepping out on faith and saying, hey, let's go do this, because doing something like this, you really starting up, you can't do anything else really. If you're trying to start a whole station, you have to be 100% in it. Mm-hmm. For it to work. So I just had to dive in, man, and survive the best way I could for those years. I don't even know how I did it. But eventually, I remember having a sit down with Ken Lancey, who was running for mayor one time, and I was telling him, our numbers are this, that, and the other. He said, no, they're not. He was like, can you prove it? No. He was like, okay, well, he said, one thing you guys are good at, he said, which I was going to tell you, to fake it till you make it, like that. So we would spit these numbers out like, yeah, we getting thousands of listeners here and this, that, and the other. We really weren't, we're just pumping ourselves up to the point where eventually the station got so popular that those numbers were real. So then we started getting those numbers, and we could prove we were getting those numbers, and we got world-ranked radio shows now here, and the sponsors looking at that. And then my thing was also the personalities, and I had to get talk people into this thing who had big names, and I was able to do that because, like I said, my network. And I talked to another guy out back then too, who told me another thing, the most important part, and he told me, he said, you know what your most important piece of you is going to be? Like I said, what? He said, your network. He said, get out here and meet as many people as you can, like that, he said, and hang around the ones that you need, because later on, you're going to need them, for something, but make sure they're part of your network. So I always remember that, So when I was doing reporting for the City of Cleveland, TV 20, I forgot about that. I'm still a reporter also. I'm a television reporter for the City of Cleveland. That branched off from me doing those TV shows. So I'm still a freelance reporter for the city, and I go around town interviewing whoever they want me to interview, television. But doing that, I just made sure I always was passing out my card, make sure I'm meeting people, going to different functions, and trying to meet as many people as I can. And then when I came out, I was credible. When I got the people who were part of the station were credible, and that's how it grew. So now we have everybody from Lynn Tolliver, who's one of the biggest. He's one of the biggest broadcast radio legends here in Cleveland. Lynn Tolliver, Ralph Poole, Tony Marshall, the B-Man, always part of WCAK. Kim Sellers was here for a while. We just had Harry Boomer from Channel, a long-time TV journalist, Harry Boomer, well-known casting director Lillian Powles, Big Hef, Quincy Taylor from the Nerve DJs and Def Jam. He works for Def Jam. That's the show that came on earlier today. Laura Cowan, who's the domestic violence advocate, she was on a show on a national show today in New York, the Tamara Hall. She was on Tamara Hall show today at 3:00, actually representing Voice of Radio, and on a national platform. So activists like Al Porter, who's on the news every single day. He's the president of Black on Black Crime Incorporated. Bill Silverby Richards is the director of Project Safe. I mean, so these people, I kind of handpicked these people, going around through the years, like, I need that guy. I need those numbers. I need him and his following. I need her and her following. And everybody who came in already got all these big followers and they're already popular and famous anyway. So I was like, this got to work. So all these people in the same place, we're kicking butt over here.
And to get people like that, I feel like you have to know how to grow a brand. And you started off, working with a few partners, but how did you budget marketing and things like that in order to get the brand out there.
Right. Now, that's when we were kind of lucky, because before, if you were starting a business like this some years ago, you would need money, a lot of overhead, for advertising and all that. We came around the age of these MySpace and Facebook just started, and we can advertise for free. So we really didn't need a lot of marketing dollars when it came to getting the word out, because we had the personalities putting out great content, and then we had MySpace and Facebook and all that stuff was coming up. So we were on top of that stuff too, getting the name out.
We are here sitting with Errol Porter, founder of Voice It Radio.
Hey.
Before the break, you were giving us a hint at some of the differences between internet radio and terrestrial radio. What do you see?
Well, now this has been my battle for since I started competing with terrestrial radio for some of those advertising dollars. Before we came along, Radio 1 was pretty much the only urban media format here in the city of Cleveland, until Voice of Radio came along, and now people have another option to receive their information a little bit different. Difference between internet and terrestrial radio. Terrestrial radio, you're in a car, and you turn your radio on in your car, and that's where your signal comes in to the car. Internet radio, of course, is over internet and Wi-Fi, and you can listen on your telephone or your home laptop or computer or tablets now. So that gave us actually a huge opportunity to reach even more people. The terrestrial radio stations are now kind of catching a wave of, we can broadcast both ways, but they still haven't mastered what it is to market through internet radio. And that's one thing we've done. I mean, internet radio not only consists of terrestrial radio, put it this way, to me, terrestrial radio, when you run an ad, nowadays, if you're not in a car, you just never hear it, which means to me, people waste a lot of money. And years ago, we got into the car, we fought over the radio stations in the car. I want to listen to this, I want to listen to that. Mom, your mom's changed their channel, and you want to hear this channel, your sister wants to hear this different channel, and everybody's fighting over that. Nowadays, the kids are fighting over the auxiliary cords. They want to plug their phone up, they want their content coming out of their phone. They got choices now. So it's not so, and that's what's different. So I tell some of our, terrestrial radio is still a good source for getting the word out if you're advertising, using your advertising dollars. But how many people get in the car and turn their radio on? Not many. I don't. When I get in the car, it's coming. My content is coming out of my phone. Most people Bluetoothing their phone up to the car, and that's what they're listening to, and that's how they're having a choice now. That's how they listen to us. So there's a better percentage rate of people when internet radio, people catching your message from our sponsors and advertisers, because we can take that message in a lot of different ways. You have our show hosts, which are giving live reads, and they're very popular, so they have their followers listen to them. They're during their live shows, we have commercials running. So a client can also have commercials running on the podcast or the on-demand version of the show. So after it's done and we load it up, that podcast and on-demand show is blasted out through social media. And we're blasting it out through our network, which is about 30 show hosts who all got maxed out Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. So we're like 1.5 million connections or something like that, with all of our show hosts. Our website is in the top 12% of website traffic across the world. So our sponsors benefit from being on our website and our link, and it's driving them traffic. So you got the social media, the internet. Now you got Facebook Live and Instagram Live and YouTube, and there's so many ways to get a message out, and a whole lot of ways to monetize that also. So we can sell ads everywhere. We have a face camera on right now. We can sell space on the wall.
Right.
So
Nice.
we could sell it any kind of way.
Yeah.
So that's how definitely a lot of the revenue comes in, man. Just getting out here, and sponsors and advertisers are now getting it. I had a call from the Cavs just today. Actually, I have a meeting with the Cavs next Wednesday, and they haven't touched the internet radio. And someone called me today from the Cavs. Finally, I'm like, damn, okay, I'm glad y'all getting with the program. We've been trying to get in it,
Love the Cavs.
there for years with internet radio, and Cavs, Indians, or Browns wouldn't issue us any kind of media credentials because we were an internet radio station, even though we had some of the best sports shows in the city on our station. They wouldn't let us in. So now it's kind of getting to the point where everything's kind of transitioning over, and they're seeing the power of internet radio.
And so you have this big market thanks to technology that's allowed your platform to reach so many people. So what does it take to really get your foot in the door with the sponsor? What are the statistics that they look at? What are the numbers that they want to see?
All right, so they want to see listenership. They want to see how many times their logo can be seen if you send it out as part of a social media blast. They're looking at how many people are going to hear their commercial when it's running on the air. They want to know how many times that people are going to hear Lynn Tolliver or Harry Boomer doing a live read for someone. They want to know how many people are looking in if I have some product placement or something like that. A can sitting up here. Mm-hmm. How many people are seeing that can? And that's what it's about. It's about numbers, man. You got numbers. They want those numbers. Those numbers turn into dollars for them. So that's what it's about, the bottom line.
And so sponsorships brings a lot of opportunity to you and the businesses as well. And you guys are bringing a lot of different opportunities for businesses to get involved. Could you tell us a little bit about the co-advertising plan and how that works?
Right. We just came up with a nifty little plan called the co-advertising plan. And what that does, the model there is businesses helping businesses. And so the big boys, and the whole premise behind that is the big boys, let's say a big corporation who has a large marketing budget will sponsor a 2-minute ad that will run on our station. So you'll hear that sponsor, the main sponsor, at the beginning, at the bottom, the beginning and the bottom of each minute. But sprinkled in there are 15-second, 30-second, 5-second, 15-second, and 30-second spots from smaller businesses around the community. So the big boy is paying for the spot, the majority of the spot. The little people come in and help cover the rest of the costs. So we can have a main sponsor who are paying, let's say, $500 a week. Mm. Then we're able to offer 5-second spots to smaller businesses for like $15 a week, and 30-second spots for $30 a week, so they don't have a large budget, but they're still being that commercial 200 times a month,
right?
Just like the big guy. They'll hear more from the big guy because he's got more on there, but you'll still hear that, hey, visit so-and-so's barbershop on East 131st and Lakeshore, it'll be in that spot. So then, and those smaller companies are also responsible for sending out a social media blast for the main sponsor who helped them get that spot cheap, and also having paraphernalia from that sponsor in their physical office locations. Mm. So, and that helps the main sponsor because the main sponsor helped you, then you help promote more of the main sponsor too. So it's all the businesses kind of working together.
Yes,
so
it takes the community.
It's kind of cool. That concept was thought up by Chuck Conway Jr. Shout out to Chuck Conway. He hosts our show called Golden Wax on Saturdays from 2 to 3. Plays oldies but goodies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And he has a nostalgic voice, and it's pretty cool, man. I love Chuck, man. Chuck's been with us for about 4 or 5 years now. Also, he was on WJMO some years ago, and he worked with WZAK. He also worked for Def Jam Records back in the day also. And also he started the first video show in Cleveland called Telejam.
Nice history.
Back in the 90s, yeah.
And we're back getting ready to close out the show for Founders Get Funds. Again, I'm your host, The Taken, live with the founder of Voice It Radio, Errol Porter. Now, before the show, we were talking about how you're a great platform on the air, online, but Voice of Radio is also known for throwing events here in Cleveland. I was at the Turkey Jam last year. It was popping. Again, another opportunity for individuals to come out and showcase their talents. But what does it take to get a community to come out and support an event like that?
That's an easy event to do, actually. The Turkey Jam sells itself. It's been going on for the last, back in the early 90s with Lynn Tolliver and those guys. When Lee Zappis on radio, on WZAK, Lynn Tolliver, the B-Man, Kim Sellers, all of them started the Turkey Jam. And there was a chance for people to come out and dress up nice, not to have to pay for any tickets. All the tickets were free. And they would get about 10,000 people down at the public hall downtown for a huge concert. So when I realized I had all those people that dealt with the Turkey Jam, we decided to bring it back to Cleveland. So we started it back up about 3 years ago. We did it at Cavante's the first year out of Richmond Mall. We packed the place. And then the next year, we did it at Mitchell's and packed the place. And then this year we tried to go a little bigger. And we had some issues with some production, this year, but that's going to change next year with some better planning and people, learning how people get involved. Sometimes you hit and miss. Someone told me that everyone had fun except for us. That's all. That's what they told me today. Like, everybody had fun. We just didn't. Everybody got paid. We didn't, because there were some issues with our sound this year, and sound company just didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so that's easy to bounce back from. So we'll do it again, bigger and badder this year. Make sure we got the right equipment in there for our artists to put on the show that we want them to put on, that the community deserves, for one. But the Turkey Jam is a way for businesses in the area to get back to the community. It's a way for businesses to drive us, to help them drive more businesses to them, because all the tickets are free. Sponsors become ticket locations, and Boost Mobile, shout out to Boost Mobile, this year was one of our huge sponsors, and there were tickets at like 5 or 6 Boost Mobile locations. You just had to go pick them up, So then we had probably about the 10 other sponsors this year, besides Boost Mobile, that were part of the Turkey Jam this year, and hopefully we're able to do again. And this year we got to give away 25 turkeys. So we have a holiday party the week before that, so we're able to give away turkeys to a whole bunch of people, which is always cool every year. And we have a good time we have 2 parties, a holiday party the week before the Turkey Jam, so that's a good time too. That went off without a hitch. That was a good time. But other than that, Turkey Jam, like I said, it's an annual thing. We want to keep it here in Cleveland. It's a tradition, and we're going to make sure that it's done better and bigger this year when the time comes around.
Yes, believe that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It definitely takes a community to grow businesses, and it takes those businesses working together to grow the community. And that's a lot of the reason why I started this show, because the financial risk, the debt, the burden that comes with being a founder is very real. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, outside of funding, it takes people working together. So I would ask, what advice would you give for young founders out there in Cleveland trying to get started?
Well, there are a ton of programs. For one, here in Cleveland, you got programs like Jumpstart that offers funding for new businesses, and there's a couple more out there. Also, I know LeBron James, when he was in town, he was doing something with some of the businesses in Cleveland, and they awarded a couple of businesses a lot of money to get started. Also, you have places like the Urban League, which you can go to. Also, the Urban League will help you put your whole business plan together, and then help you get funding also. So there's a lot of different ways. Do your research. Talk to some of these people who have been successful, and raising capital for their businesses. And you said, what do they say? Just copy brilliance, really. Watch brilliant people work and do what they do,
Yeah.
and ask them. I wish years ago, I remember just driving through, sometimes driving through some of these neighborhoods like Bratton Hall and Pepper Pike and Orange. I wish when I was 16, I just would have drove my car to everyone's house and rang the doorbell and said, "What do you do for a living?" How do you afford this? House to house. How did you afford this? Okay, I may need to be a doctor. What do you do? Okay, you're in oil, all right. I wish I did, man. Sometimes when I look at some of these places, I'm like, I wonder what they do for a living. How come I didn't just copy what he did, But,
yes.
Yeah, but my thing right now is just some people that try to copy me. So if I leave my legacy, people be walking up to my door asking me, how'd you do this? So that's what I want to leave, and a legacy for my kids and everything too.
Yes.
So, and a lot of money, they
generational
want that.
wealth.
Right. That's what it's about.
Want more? Subscribe to our YouTube channel to take a deeper look at this week's interview. For our blog, go to foundersgetfunds.com. For daily conversations on funding strategies and building wealth, join our Facebook group, Founders Get Funds. Get to know us more at Founders Get Funds on Instagram and follow us at Founders Get Fund with no S on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe right after this episode to join us next week for more funding strategies from founders for founders. Again, I'm Dee Tagan, and thanks for listening.